This is going to be a very brief story. In fact, not so much of a story maybe, because today there is nothing to solve in the village of Aldervale. No mystery, no lessons or advice. This is just a little wander through some of the ordinary things that can make a day feel unexpectedly lovely. And this was instigated this morning by my 3-year-old granddaughter running across the hallway upstairs. That thump, 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 thump. And it was so moving, even though I've heard it every morning. Yesterday and this morning, it brought such a smile to my face and made me think, especially today, of those simple pleasures in life, because the stories I do usually are, there's some advice and some lessons and, well, maybe thinly disguised advice. But today I wanted to make up for that with just some reminders of pleasure. So here we go. Thump, 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 thump. Little bare feet coming down the hallway. Not quietly. Small children rarely see much point in arriving anywhere quietly. There is something wonderfully determined about those early morning footsteps. Still warm from bed, hair tousled, eyes barely open, perhaps dragging a blanket behind them. They know exactly where they're going, towards Mum, Dad, Grandma, Grandad, or in my case, Gigi, towards whatever represents the safe place at the end of the hallway. And somewhere before the day has properly begun, someone hears those little feet padding along the hall. They hear them coming and they smile. It is such a small sound, but such a lovely one. Aldervale was waking too. Curtains opening, doors being unlocked, and here and there hands were wrapping themselves around the first mug of the morning. Tea for some, coffee for others. That first sip, pure bliss. The one that somehow tastes better than all the ones that come afterwards. Outside one cottage, a man stood in his dressing gown, holding his coffee, looking at absolutely nothing in particular. He wasn't waiting for anything, wasn't going anywhere. He was just standing there, feeling the morning air on his face, drinking his coffee. Across the lane, someone spotted him through a window and raised her mug. He raised his. No words. Morning. That was enough. Further along the village, washing had begun to appear on the line. Sheets first, then shirts. A row of socks that looked considerably more cheerful, pegged to a washing line than socks had any right to look. The breeze caught the sheets and filled them like sails. For a moment they billowed out, bright against the morning sky. There's something about washing, moving on a line. Perhaps it's the smell, perhaps the movement, perhaps the thought of bringing it indoors later, clean and fresh from outside. Whatever it is, people have stood at windows and watched washing dance in the breeze for generations. Until now, that is. Somewhere nearby, someone laughed. A proper laugh. The sort that escapes before you can make it respectable. Another person heard it from the garden and started smiling without even knowing what was funny. Laughter does that. Sometimes you don't need to be in on the joke. You just need to hear somebody you love enjoying one. Later, a little hand reached for a bigger one. No announcement, no request. Those small little fingers simply slipped inside the larger fingers as naturally as if that were where they belonged, and off they went. There are few things quite like the trust of a small hand placed inside yours, especially when the owner of that hand is busy looking somewhere else entirely. They aren't thinking about it, they just know you're there. By late morning, the sun had found its way through a window and made one particular patch of carpet wonderfully warm. The cat found it within minutes. Cats always do. No matter how small the patch of sunshine, somewhere there is a cat prepared to occupy all of it. She stretched, turned once, turned again, then collapsed into the middle of the warmth and looked as though she had personally arranged the weather. In another house, a dog heard a key in the door. This was apparently the most exciting event ever to have occurred in Aldervale. Tail began thumping, and then the whole back end joined in. By the time the door opened, the dog was beside himself. His person had been gone for nearly 20 minutes. 20 minutes, an eternity. There was jumping, there was leaning, there was an attempt to climb into a lap while still standing on the floor. And there was the particular expression dogs have perfected, which says, "I thought you had gone forever. Where have you been? Did you bring anything?" Eventually he settled for pressing his entire body against one leg. Being nearby wasn't quite enough. Sometimes love, apparently, requires leaning. Around lunchtime, clouds began gathering over Aldervale. Nobody paid them much attention at first. And then came that first tapping against the windows. Rain. Just rain. Gentle and steady. Someone opened a back door simply to smell it. That smell when rain meets warm, dry ground. There's nothing like it. Someone else stepped outside and stood there for a moment, face lifted, eyes closed, letting a few drops fall on her cheeks. She could have stayed dry. She didn't. Children rarely bother with such decisions. A puddle appeared. A pair of small boots found it. Splash. Then again, because obviously the first splash hadn't sufficiently investigated the situation. Splash! By the third one, the puddle had become a scientific study. By the sixth, somebody's trousers were wet. Oh, the look of mischief in those eyes. And the person watching from the doorway was trying very hard to look disapproving. It wasn't working. The rain passed. The sun came out. And suddenly everything outside seemed to have been polished. Leaves shone. Drops hung from flowers. The air smelled different. A window opened. A breeze moved the curtain. And for no particular reason at all, the room felt lovely. The afternoon brought other small pleasures. Finding something you'd been looking for when you'd finally stopped looking for it. Taking off shoes that had become increasingly offensive as the day went on. That first bite of something when you hadn't realised quite how hungry you were. A cool drink when you're thirsty. Freshly washed hair. A favourite old cardigan. The chair that somehow fits your body better than all the other chairs. Maybe a telephone call from someone whose voice you genuinely pleased to hear. Not because anything has happened, just because. They've simply called. Hello. You know who it is before they tell you. Someone hands you a cup of tea, and you don't have to ask how it was made. They already know. Someone brings coffee exactly the way you like it. Someone cuts a piece of cake and gives you the bit with the extra frosting. Or someone remembers that you don't like the end piece, or that you do. As afternoon softens towards evening, the village changes again. Somewhere there's onions frying in a pan. Somewhere dinner's being prepared. A front gate clicked. Someone called, "Hello!" A voice answered from inside. "People are coming home." A woman walking along the lane stopped because the last of the sunlight had found the side of her face. She didn't do anything with it. She simply stood there for a few seconds and felt its warmth, and then she carried on. A little further along, two people sat together on a bench. They weren't talking. They didn't need to. One reached across and took the other's hand, and they stayed that way. As darkness came, lamps appeared behind the windows of Aldervale. One, then another, then another. Little pools of gold, curtains drawn, shoes off, kettles on. Someone sank into that chair with a particular sigh that says they have absolutely no intention of getting out of it for quite some time. A bath was running somewhere. Pyjamas appeared, and upstairs in one house, a child chooses a bedtime story. The same story again. There were shelves containing other books. This was irrelevant. This was the one, and so the story is read again. The child knows some of the words now. They knew exactly what happens on the next page. They know exactly where the funny bits are. But it doesn't spoil anything, and before long, little eyelids began losing their battle. The story continued a little more quietly. Eventually, the book is closed. A kiss lands on a warm forehead. The light turned off. Those little bare feet that had gone thump, thump, thump along the hallway that morning were finally still. Tomorrow they would come again. Thump, 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 thump. Someone would hear them and smile. Outside, the last of the rain slipped from a leaf. Somewhere behind an open window, somebody is still laughing. A hand finds another hand beneath the covers. Aldervale settles quietly into the night. The simple pleasures in life cost nothing, they just exist. Ours to feel and enjoy. So, with that, I bid you goodbye or good night. I will be back, and I hope just this little insertion of things to take pleasure in that really don't cost anything but make you feel so good help with all those other things that we constantly have to think about. So when you're feeling a bit down, just think about what your simple pleasures may be. And I will see you again soon.